I'd like to invite here the participants in our next panel discussion on how local CEE reality may help build a global startups. What makes Israel and Finland so unique? What should or can be done in order to add value to the CEE ecosystem? Please welcome on the stage again Ivan from Teres Capital, who is going to moderate the panel. Elena Marinova, CEO Musala Soft. Maciej, Investment Director Intel Capital. Welcome.
You're gonna be at 4. Microphone. We have available microphone.
Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be here again in such a distinguished company. I think it's a very neat combination of people we have on stage. Maciej and Elena, as we're going to talk about local versus global. I'd like to cover two main themes today, if possible, in the next 20-25 minutes, because I'm told we're...
Can you turn off the music?
Perfect. I was just enjoying my voice in the
We can multitask.
Background. Perfect. It's practice for the dance later tonight. What I'd like to talk about is two main themes. One is building upon a little bit of on what I said about exporting, in quotation marks, teams from here that can address the global markets through having a business development function in a more mature market, while they keep the technology cost function here. I'd like to talk about what the main challenges, according to you guys, are in doing that, and then maybe also turn our attention to what the challenges are to cultivating a local venture system that doesn't necessarily have to have an outward perspective at all times and across all functions.
Can I first ask the question, why Finland? What's with Finland on this panel?
I'm not sure about Finland either. Oh,
so we should be here.
So we have somebody to tell us why Finland is so successful.
Perfect. So in your experience, Maciej, do teams universally dream about accessing places like Silicon Valley or New York?
I'm not really sure what's the question, but if I understand correctly, you want to know what's the CEE perspective versus the Silicon Valley perspective, and can we find the right targets here? Is that the question?
Well, actually, my question is, in your investment experience, as you review teams and products, do you find it to be the case that most of these want to be addressing a global market rather than a regional or a local market?
I came across many that tried to address a global market. I cannot think about maybe one or two from the region that succeeded, and I don't really think that this is something that startups from here should be doing. So thinking about global perspective, because if you want to think global, the natural place is Silicon Valley, and if you're desperate enough to start a startup, probably you should be desperate enough to go to California and do it over there. That's my opinion, yes? But there are a few that made it to NASDAQ, and they came from this region, to mention AVG, to mention Yandex. Hardly you can name them startups, but these are the big successes. Logmein, for example, all of them are investments. I would say, there are different things that count here and in Silicon Valley. If you are in Silicon Valley, you should probably focus rather on the product and the pre-revenue talk, and have the story like WhatsApp or Snapchat or even Nest on your roadmap. Here in Europe, and especially in this part of Europe, I would say that startups should be more focused on really earning money. And it's always this Jerry Maguire thing, show me the money. Because I don't really think you can bridge the gap without being bridge the gap to Silicon Valley without being there. We can, try to help, but it's not so obvious. So I would say, if you're a startup, try to do monetizing as soon as possible, and then if you have a really great idea, go to Silicon Valley.
Okay, so you don't think a system where you actually do both is feasible, where your technology is here, technology team is here, but you sell your service or product?
But look,
outside?
there is. I'm not saying that there is no talent. There is talent in the region.
Okay.
WhatsApp founder is Ukrainian by origin. You have Google guys that are Russian. So.
No, Russia.
So it is talent in the region, but what I'm saying is that the whole environment that is supporting the growth of the pre-revenue companies is not here, is out there.
Okay, makes sense. And what is your perspective, having founded a very successful local software company?
Okay, you're asking another question.
Well, I mean,
just a few remarks. First, is there a model which a startup or any company should follow? No. As we have in Bulgaria saying, every train has its passengers. So there are different ways to achieve success, and there are different definitions of success. And one more remark, I challenge that you have to be desperate to start a company. Most of the times you just enjoy starting a company. And thus, being desperate to found a company, then you're desperate enough to go to Silicon Valley. I challenge that too. There are different places in the world where you can make successful business. And to your question about how we started and to the topic of the panel, local versus global, we started global and then we became local, or expanded locally. And I think that's more and more valid nowadays because just the world is global and everything is connected. When we started, it was kind of a must that you have to test your product in your local market and then go globally if it's successful. As I said, we actually started in Silicon Valley from Bulgaria, working for Silicon Valley startup companies. And then we expanded our business in Europe, and then we expanded our business in Bulgaria. So every model works. Most of the startups that I see currently, especially around 11 and Launch Hub, they're looking to London and Silicon Valley. Right. Patriotically, egoistically, I'm happy that they're here and they're testing their products here. But I don't think they have to go there. They can still stay in Europe and be successful. And I don't think that being in US you'll be WhatsApp, and staying in Europe you will be something different. It depends on the company, not on the place that much.
Okay. Did you receive any outside investments as you were growing?
No, we have always been self-sustaining company.
And Maciej, would you have funded a company like this one, which is based in Bulgaria, but it works only with Silicon Valley startups or customers?
Founded in 2000, just before the dot-com crash.
They just said they don't need money, so it's pointless probably.
But if they did, would you have considered the company that's based here locally, but all of their revenues are?
No. The thing that I'm trying to put in front of us is the discussion that why Estonians are so successful. Why Bulgarians are so successful?
Israelis.
And the Czech.
Okay.
It's an 8 million people country. Why are they so successful globally? And my answer is that because the market is so small. So you need, Skype, Estonia, AVG, Czech Republic, your company, Bulgaria. See, the markets are too small, and then the startups have to go abroad in order to attract other customers. You have bigger problem with countries like Germany, Ukraine, maybe not Ukraine, Poland, for example. If you start up a company in Poland, and you are successful, you can probably, and your family and your co-founder's family can live well on this money. Yeah? They can be wealthy and they can do a lot of development things with the product because there is enough internal market. If you are doing it from out of the smaller country, then you have a bigger problem. And to put it in a nutshell, if all this combined and you take it to Silicon Valley, you have a 300 million technology-savvy users that you can start your product with. So for me, natural place of a startup would be a Silicon Valley. And we have seen example of Flips, for example, from Bulgaria. I spoke with the guys a year ago, and they were here. And suddenly, I dropped email to them, WhatsApp, and they say, "Listen, we are in Silicon Valley because we completely moved over there because we have a media product right now that needs to be addressed to a bigger customer base."
Right, but again, the question of moving completely or partially, I think, is an important one. And again, I bring up this idea of having a few guys in Silicon Valley, but actually most of your guys are here doing the programming and the code.
Your question is actually, especially in the context of having the technology here, but business development there. Obviously, it's good to have business development close to your client, wherever he is.
Of course.
That's absolutely normal. I mean, everybody does it. So I find it quite natural. And it's
right, but if you do business development in Silicon Valley and you get funded by Silicon Valley investors, which is the case with Flips, you usually have to become a quote-unquote Silicon Valley company. So this issue of patriotism is really important. It's really interesting to me that you raise. Is it still a Bulgarian company or is it an American company? Is it both? Culturally speaking, just conceptually speaking. I'm not speaking about the technicalities of that.
Yeah, but usually you structure your company the way it's best for your business. And if you need to have a US entity to be funded, then you do it. If you need to have a US face, you do it. For example, Indian companies are doing that for years, having European or American faces. With America, it's not that much of importance. But for example, for Europe, if they want to enter Germany, they're hiring German-speaking native people so that they have the German face, because Germans are not very much willing to work with Indian companies. Now talking about big companies, not startups, but even with startups, if your business requires something, you just do it. It's the cost of doing business. It's not the main thing. It's just technicality. And back on your question, whether he would fund my company 15 years ago, most probably not, because at that time the venture and capital culture as a whole was not well developed in Bulgaria, if I may say so. It was not developed at all, actually. Currently, there is a lot of buzz. There are a lot of startups. There are a lot of different funds, angel groups, etc. here. And it's a completely different situation. Those who are starting their companies these last few years have much more advantages than we had 15 years ago.
Absolutely, I fully agree. And this is why we are looking right now at companies that can demonstrate growth as well as revenues. And what Intel is really good on doing is to, once the company has enough traction, we can bring this company global. And it might be the case that your company, for example, will need a funding for going global. You would imagine that you want to be in 15 other countries. That's where probably investors like Intel Capital or others can come in. But your question was, would I found a startup? Depending on what startup. If it is money-oriented, I would fund it here. If it was a long ahead pre-revenue, I would probably go to the US.
Yeah, I think global as a perspective when it comes to software is quite unique. If you were to say I'm in 15 countries, would you actually mean we have offices in 15 countries or we somehow cover them? Because my sense is that a lot of the work can get done remotely without having formal presence in each of these countries. in some sectors of the software industry?
It again very much depends.
Yeah.
For example, we've been having clients for 10 years without meeting anybody physically.
Wow.
I mean, really anybody.
They still pay, right?
Yes, they still
well,
pay.
You don't need to meet them, perfect.
There's money, so real clients. And in the same time, for example, recently we acquired a German big client who insisted on having business development and client-facing person on site in his town,
Okay.
not geography, not the country,
Wow.
but very close to him. So it depends on the culture of the client also. As I said, you just follow what the business needs. So in this case, I had to have a representative in a specific town. In many other cases, we are covering different countries without ever being there.
Yeah.
So the two.
Yeah. And do you think there's a feasible way of actually building a purely local venture culture here? You know, Turkey has done that. Obviously, scale is very different. The market is very different. But is there a specific niche or a specific vertical that we can say, okay, people, if you're good in this, you can stay just in Bulgaria and not worry about venturing outside, at least for the time being?
No.
Okay.
I mean, as I said, we're living in a global world. As he just said,
Yeah.
Bulgaria is a very small market, so we have to be global to be successful. That's absolutely a must. And when we have the next crisis, which is inevitable, sooner or later there will be some crisis, those who are focusing on a specific niche, market, geography, etc., will have much more problems than those who are diversified.
How much are you worried about local geopolitical conditions? I've been hearing a lot of different takes on that recently, especially as we go around the world and fundraise. Recently, one of our investors was calling me frantically in the middle of the night asking, "Oh, is Bulgaria next on Putin's list? What's going on? Is it safe? Is it safe to put our money there?" What's your perspective on geopolitics? We obviously talked about EU, NATO membership, all the macro conditions, but how much do you think that matters?
I am Polish, so it's very emotional.
So you're
sure,
first
I'm
on
sure.
the list before Bulgaria.
Exactly. So historically, we were not that successful from both sides of the river. No, I would say that in Intel Capital, and that's my as well personal belief, that wherever there is a big gap between a real danger and a perceived risk, that's where you can make the most money.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, even though we are very close to that conflict, I think from the global perspective, it is perceived as risky and therefore shouldn't be touched. At Intel Capital, especially in this geography, me and the whole team, we think differently. This is the right moment to invest because the valuations are, the competition to the deal is much smaller or there is none. The valuation therefore are lower. So this is the time to invest.
Makes sense.
Opportunistic.
Yeah, and especially Poland, I think they're in a very good position currently with the Ukrainian problems because there is a number of people going to Poland, immigrating to Poland currently, and that's qualified workforce.
Yeah. Do our Finnish friends have a perspective on that? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Where are you on Putin's list was the question.
If anyone, it's not working, but if anyone has a question, you should join now, just before the end of their panel.
Yeah, we have a couple more minutes, I believe.
Yeah. Anyone? Come on.
Well,
Okay.
well, if you'd like to jump in, I don't know if there's a free mic or.
It's working.
Yeah.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Timo from Finland. Live here in Sofia now. Little bit perspective, more than a question. on why Finland has been successful. And
Right.
I think it has, if you look at the examples at the moment, the biggest grossing mobile app company who's bringing most money to Apple at the moment, you know which one it is? Supercell, exactly. Finnish company. Where do they have a headquarters? Finland. Where had they always had the team? In Finland. Where have they raised the money? Mostly from UK. It was funded about 15 million before they were into revenue. I think the biggest reason why we have successes like Rovio, Supercell, Habbo, is the fact that we have examples. Very early on, Habbo, which was big already 2004, they created an online community for pre-teens and actually managed to monetize it pretty well. At those times, they were doing 50, 60 million a year, which was really big money at that time. And I think the biggest influence has been that we've seen an example. We know people who made it big, and we can see it's possible doing it from Finland without moving to the valley. And that's a Finnish perspective on how to make it big from Finland. And I think same applies to Bulgaria. Once we have few big successes here, once we really get funded enough and have good exits, perspective will change and more companies will come because talent is here.
Thank you, Timo. Perhaps just a few closing words from each of you I'd love to hear. What do you think is, in summary, the easiest and the hardest thing about going global?
I would agree with Timo that PR, the show-off side, the branding of the country is extremely important. Mm-hmm. And that's a job that can be done only if all the efforts of the country, the companies, the business go jointly.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you a lot.